Hello class, this is Mr. Beltran. Hope everyone's doing well. Our objective for today is to determine simple interest on a loan. Our agenda is if we have math class is first we'll do our do now. Then after our do now, we'll do our notes. And then after notes, we'll have our practice question. After our practice question, you do your self-check. How do we do our self-check? We do our self-check on Study Island. On our notes, we're going to have a table of contents as we do in class. But our table of contents will go on the top, simple interest on a loan. You have your dates and your page number. This right here is the practice question that we're going to work on. Next, what we're going to go to is our do now. I'm going to put the camera towards the do now, and that's what you're going to be working on, that do now. On our do now, you're going to see that you're going to have to convert percentages to decimals. You're going to have to convert the following percentages to decimals. You have number 1, 1%. Number 2, 3.5%. Number 3, 0.8%. You're converting those percents into decimals. And after that, your next question you're going to do is simplify the following expression when x equals 0.5. So we're going to insert x to 0.5 and see what we get when we simplify that expression. At this time, you're going to go ahead and pause. Once you pause, you can go ahead and do your do now on a separate sheet of paper. As you're doing your do now, we're going to set up for your notes. Again, we're going to be taking notes. What our notes are going to be on? Simple interest on a loan. On your simple interest on a loan, you have your reference sheet. On your reference sheet, they will show you how to do simple interest and compound interest. Okay, now that you have done your do now, you took it off of pause. Right here, 1%. We have 1%. We want to change that to a decimal. We remove the decimal point 2 places because the decimal point, when it's not there, is understood to be right between the 1 and the percent sign. So right here we have our decimal. We're going to move it 2 places. So we would have 0.01. That would be its decimal equivalence. Over here we have 3.5%. We're going to move the decimal point. Decimal point's here. We're going to move it 2 places to the left. So we would have 0.035 as its equivalent. Here we have 0.8. We're going to move the decimal point over 2 places. When we do that, we'll have 0.008 as our decimal. So right here we would have 100ths as our decimal, 35 thousandths as our decimal, and then 8 thousandths of our decimal. That's when we convert those percentage to decimals. After that, we're going to have this expression. We go ahead and put 0.5 into this x. So then we would have 700 multiplied by 0.5. And then we're going to multiply that times 6. When you do that, you're going to find out you're going to get 2,100. Okay, class, that was the do now. After, like I said, after the do now, we're going to do our notes. So at this time, I'm going to put your notes on. And if you don't have your notebook out, you go ahead and get your notebook and put these notes in your notebook. Talking about simple interest, talking about loans. These are some new words possibly that we haven't heard before. So now we have our notes, so we can get these notes down into our notebook. That's what we're doing at this time. Again, these are notes on simple interest. We have simple interest. We notice that our first word that we have on it is interest. What is interest? The money a borrower pays a lender for a loan. What is a loan? The lender's money. You see this? I see this in school. You've been with your friend and you ask your friend, can I get $1? I'll get you back tomorrow, or I'll get you back the next day, after tomorrow. Sooner or later, you have to pay back that $1. But there, you're taking a loan. But your friend's not charging you interest when he says that you're going to give back the $1 he had given you. However, when we go to banks, when we ask for a loan, they're going to want interest on their loan. That's money borrowed pays a lender for a loan. So that's what you're paying the bank to get their money or for the loan. And the loan is the lender's money or the bank's money or your friend's money that you're borrowing. Principal is that amount of money that was borrowed. So when you borrowed that dollar, when you're paying back that dollar, that is the principal. Next we have the interest rates. Describes how much is paid for the use of money as a percent. So we have to determine how much the interest rate is going to be, but when they give it to us, it's going to be a percentage. That's why we are converting percentages in our do now, converting a percentage to a decimal. We move that decimal point 2 places and get rid of that percent sign so that now we can do this in our problem. Okay, as before, we got individuals in the back that cannot see. We're gonna move this up. If you haven't gotten what's up there on top yet, that's okay. You can go ahead and pause the video. You press your space bar, and you can pause it. Okay, as we're going up, we got interest rates. Remember, it's as a percentage. We're gonna change it into a decimal. Suppose a person wants to be a gamer and needs a big screen television, console, and accessories. Some of you are out there right now playing video games, and some of us have dreams of possibly being a gamer. Suppose you are that gamer and you want the big screen television and your PS4 or your Xbox One, whatever console you use, and then your accessories. The gamer offers a 25% interest per year to people who lent him $2,000. So I'm going to get money, not just my principal, the $2,000, but interest, 25% interest. After a year, the gamer becomes successful and pays you back with interest. So this gamer is going to be successful, and then after a year, they're going to end up paying you back money. Where do I get this formula? Well, this formula is on your reference sheet. But when we look at this, what is principal? Principal is the amount of money that the person had borrowed. What's that rate? Well, that's that money that's being charged for borrowing. And then time. Well, you have to, certain amount of time, pay that money back. It may be a year. It may be 5 years. Determine how much time went by when you have borrowed this money. Okay, in this case, our principal, the amount the gamer is asking for, is $2,000. That's our principal. What's our interest rate? Well, our interest rate was 25%. It was 25%, but we're going to change that to 25% to 2,500. We have 25%. We change 25% to 2,500 by moving that decimal point over 2. In case people cannot see in the back, I'm going to move this up. I guess there's no one in the back, but that's what we do in class in case you can't see what's on the bottom. In this case, it's because of a glare. Because of that glare there, we may not be able to see what's on the bottom, so we're going to move it up. So as we see, we had 2,500. Before that, it was 25%. It was 25%. So we moved the 25%. It becomes 2,500. And then we can put it into our equation. That's what we're talking about. That's what was possible to do now also. Right here, now we figure out our interest is $500. However, I'm expecting more than just $500 back from this gamer. I lent $2,000. I'm going to get the $500, resist the interest, over 1 year, but then I'm also going to get my principal back, the amount I've given that person at the beginning of the loan. So we have principal plus our interest and equals the amount that's going to be returned to me. So I have 2,000 plus 500 equals 2,500. So after 1 year, I should be given back $2,500. If you need to pause it again, you press the space bar. You can pause this to get this down. We're going to be moving on to our practice question. Yes, our practice question, which talks what we have over here on the other side. We're coming back. And we have George. And George invests $10,000 in a gaming company. And they agreed to pay him 8% per year. This would be $10,000 times, well, we see 8%. We change that 8% to a decimal. We get 0.08, which would be $800 in interest for the year. We want to know how much interest would you earn if you lend it for 5 years. That's, again, this is the type of questions that we're going to see on Study Island. We have 8%. We change that 8% to a decimal, multiply that by our principal, and this is for 1 year. So it'd be $800. But don't forget, after that 1 year, you will not only get $800, you would get $10,800. Now here we're talking about for 5 years. Okay, this is where you pause the video. You can try to come up with your answer and see what you get for 5 years. After you're done with it, you unpause it and you figure out what you got. Okay, so you unpaused it and we're looking at what we have here. How much interest would you earn if you were lent it for 5 years? Again, we would have interest equals your principal times the rate multiplied by the time. So principal multiplied by rate multiplied by time. In this case, our principal is still $10,000. So we have $10,000 and we're going to multiply this by 0.08. Apologize, 0.08. And then we're going to multiply this times 5. Because it's for 5 years. It was 1 year, but for 5 years, how much interest will we get? Okay, again, this is interest. Interest equals 10,000 times 0.08 times 5. As we noticed, before 10,000 times 0.08 was 800. Now we multiply this times 5. So we have 800 times 5. What we get when we multiply 800 times 5? I know we would have so many people raising their hands that we're in class right now. But when we do this, we would get $4,000. $4,000. This would be the interest for 5 years. Again, you would not only get your interest, you would also get the principal. So that would be 10,000 plus 4,000. The amount actually returned to you after 5 years would be $14,000. It would be $14,000 that would be returned to you after 4 years. So after 5 years. However, the interest that you've gotten for the 10,000 you had lent out for 5 years, the interest would be $4,000. Okay, that was our practice question. Again, this is self-check. When you self-check yourself, you're going to Study Island and you work in these problems. Again, be safe, subscribe, take care.